I am about to share with you today will transform your life if you let it. The 6-word secret to success that I'm about to reveal has changed countless lives, and tonight it will change yours. These 6 words are so powerful, yet so simple, that many people dismiss them. But those who truly understand and apply this principle find themselves achieving things they never thought possible. The 6 words are, we become what we think about. Let that sink in for a moment. We become what we think about. Throughout history, the great philosophers, thinkers, and achievers have all agreed on this one fundamental truth. It's been stated in different ways, but the essence remains unchanged. Marcus Aurelius knew it. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote about it. And today I'm here to explain exactly how this principle can revolutionize your life. Think about a ship leaving a harbor. If that ship doesn't have a destination, it will drift aimlessly at sea. But with a clear destination and a captain who keeps that destination firmly in mind, that ship will eventually reach its port. Your mind works the same way. Without a clear direction, you'll drift through life, taking whatever comes your way. But with a definite goal held firmly in your thoughts, you'll find yourself moving inexorably toward it. Consider the farmer who plants a seed. That farmer doesn't dig up the seed every morning to see if it's growing. He knows that by planting that seed in fertile soil, keeping it watered, and tending to it properly, the laws of nature will take care of the rest. Your thoughts work in exactly the same way. Plant the right thoughts in your mind, nurture them properly, and they will grow into the reality you desire. Let me share a story with you about a young man I once knew. He worked as a janitor in a large office building, but every night as he cleaned those offices, he didn't just see himself as a janitor. In his mind, he saw himself sitting behind one of those desks, making important decisions, leading a team. He thought about it constantly. He studied business books during his breaks. He watched how successful executives have carried themselves. He thought about success, planned for it, prepared for it. 5 years later, that same man was indeed sitting behind one of those desks, not as a janitor, but as a junior executive. Today, he owns his own company. What changed? His circumstances didn't change first, his thoughts did. He became what he thought about. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's too simple. It can't be just about thinking. And you're right, it's not just about thinking. It's about thinking with purpose, with conviction, and with action. When you hold a thought in your mind consistently, it affects your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. If you think you're going to fail, you'll unconsciously sabotage your efforts. If you think you're going to succeed, you'll unconsciously find ways to make it happen. Your mind is like a success thermostat. It will work to maintain whatever temperature you set it at. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you want to increase your income. Most people start by thinking about their current income and why they can't earn more. They think about their limitations, their lack of education, their competition, the economy. But that's exactly the wrong approach. Remember, we become what we think about. Instead, start thinking about your desired income. Think about it clearly. What exact amount do you want to earn? What kind of value would you need to provide to earn that amount? What skills would you need to develop? What opportunities would you need to create or recognize? Keep thinking about these questions, and your mind will begin to provide answers. Your subconscious mind is like a giant computer that never sleeps. It works 24 hours a day, processing information and solving problems. But here's the key, it works on whatever you feed it. If you feed it thoughts of limitation and failure, that's what it will give you back. If you feed it thoughts of success and achievement, it will work tirelessly to make those thoughts reality. But there's a catch, and this is crucial. Your thoughts must be specific and consistent. Vague wishes won't do it. I want to be successful is too general. I want to increase my income to $100,000 per year by developing valuable skills in digital marketing and creating an online business. That's specific. That's something your mind can work with. They think about Olympic athletes. Years before they stand on that podium, they've already won the gold medal in their minds thousands of times. They've thought about every detail, the weight of the medal, the the sound of their national anthem, the feel of victory. They become what they think about. The same principle applies to every area of your life. Want better relationships? Start thinking about the kind of person you need to be to attract and maintain those relationships. Want better health? Focus your thoughts on healthy habits and lifestyle choices. You want more success in your career? Think constantly about the value you can provide and the problems you can solve. But here's where many people go wrong. They try this for a day or two, don't see immediate results, and give up. Remember the farmer. You don't plant a seed today and expect to harvest tomorrow. There's a natural season of growth that must take place. Your thoughts are seeds, and they need time to grow. Let me share another powerful example. There was a woman who attended one of my seminars years ago. She was working as a receptionist and barely making ends meet, but she had a dream of becoming a successful real estate agent. Instead of focusing on her current circumstances, she began thinking constantly about her goal. She thought about the kind of real estate agent she wanted to be, not just someone who sold houses, but someone who helped families find their perfect homes. She thought about the knowledge she'd need, the relationships she'd need to build, the skills she'd need to develop. She thought about it while she answered phones at her reception job. She thought about it during her lunch break. She thought about it before she went to bed at night. Within 6 months, she had her real estate license. Within a year, she had sold her first house. Within 3 years, she was one of the top producing agents in her area. Today, she owns her own real estate company. Was it just thinking that got her there? No, but her thoughts guided her actions, shaped her decisions, and kept her moving forward when obstacles arose. This brings us to another crucial point. Your thoughts must be in harmony with natural laws and universal principles. You can't think about getting something for nothing, or achieving success without providing value, or building relationships without being trustworthy. The universe doesn't work that way. Think instead about the value you can provide, the problems you can solve, the lives you can improve. Think about excellence, about mastery, about contribution. These thoughts align with universal laws and will naturally lead to success. Consider the law of cause and effect. Everything happens for a reason. Success is not an accident. It's the natural result of right thinking followed by right action. When you understand this, you'll stop looking for shortcuts and start focusing on becoming the kind of person who deserves success. Your thoughts are causes, and your conditions are effects. If you don't like the effects in your life, you need to change the causes, your thoughts. It's that simple and that profound. Let me share with you an exercise that can accelerate this process. Take a blank sheet of paper and write down exactly what you want. Be specific. Don't write down what you think is possible. Write down what you want. Then, every morning and every evening, read what you've written. Think about it. Visualize it. Feel the emotions you'd feel if you had already achieved it. This exercise programs your subconscious mind with crystal clarity about what you want to achieve. Remember, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. When you consistently feed it the same thoughts, it accepts them as commands and begins working to make them reality. But here's something vital to understand. This isn't magic. It's not about sitting in a chair and thinking positive thoughts while waiting for success to fall into your lap. Your thoughts will create desires, and those desires will create actions, and those actions, properly directed, will create results. Think about a thermostat again. When you set it to 72 degrees, it doesn't immediately make the room 72 degrees. It starts a process. The heating or cooling system kicks in and gradually brings the temperature to the desired level. Your thoughts work the same way. They set the target, and then your actions, guided by those thoughts, gradually create the desired results. This is why it's so crucial to guard your thoughts carefully. Your mind is like a garden. You can either tend it carefully, planting the seeds of success, pulling the weeds of negative thinking, and nurturing positive, productive thoughts, or you can neglect it and let it grow wild with whatever seeds happen to blow in. Most people never realize that they have this choice. They let their thoughts be dominated by whatever happens to be going on around them, the news, other people's opinions, temporary setbacks, or fleeting emotions. But successful people understand that they can choose their thoughts just as deliberately as they choose their clothes in the morning. Let me give you another practical example. Suppose you're in sales and you're having a slow period. The average person will think about their lack of sales, worry about their commission, and stress about their bills. These thoughts create anxiety and desperation, exactly the emotions that make it harder to make sales. But the successful salesperson thinks differently. They think about the value they provide to their customers. They think about improving their skills. They think about finding new ways to serve their market. These thoughts create confidence and creativity, exactly the emotions that lead to more sales. Remember, we become what we think about. If you think about problems, you'll become a problem-oriented person. If you think about solutions, you'll become a solution-oriented person. If you think about success, you'll become a successful person. This isn't positive thinking in the sense of ignoring reality. It's positive thinking in the sense of focusing on possibilities rather than limitations, on solutions rather than problems, on what can be done rather than what can't be done. Consider Thomas Edison. When he was working on the light bulb, he could have thought about all the times he failed. Instead, he famously said that he had not failed, but had successfully found thousands of ways that wouldn't work. His thoughts were focused on success, on discovery, on progress. And eventually his reality matched his thoughts. The same principle applies to your health. Research has shown that people who maintain a positive outlook generally have stronger immune systems, recover from illness faster, and live longer than those who don't. Why? Because their thoughts actually affect their physical reality. This brings us to another important aspect of this principle. Your thoughts affect not just your actions, but your entire bearing, your posture, your tone of voice, your facial expressions, even the way you shake hands. People respond to these subtle cues, often unconsciously. When you consistently think thoughts of success and confidence, you naturally begin to carry yourself differently, and people respond to you differently. I've seen this countless times in my seminars. Someone will come in thinking thoughts of inadequacy and failure, and you can see it in everything about them, their slumped shoulders, their downcast eyes, their hesitant speech. But as they begin to understand and apply this principle, as they begin to think new thoughts, you can literally see them transform. Their posture straightens, their eyes brighten, their voice becomes more confident. This is why it's so important to associate with positive, successful people. Their thoughts, expressed in their words and actions, will influence your thoughts. As Emerson said, "Who you are speaks so loudly I cannot hear what you are saying." What we think about tends to manifest in everything we do. Let me share one more story that illustrates this principle perfectly. Years ago, I met a man who had lost everything in a business failure. He was broke, discouraged, and thinking thoughts of failure and defeat. But someone shared with him this same principle we're discussing today. We become what we think about. He began to change his thinking. Instead of dwelling on his failure, he started thinking about what he had learned from it. Instead of focusing on what he had lost, he focused on what he could create. Instead of thinking about why things wouldn't work, he thought about how to make things work. Within 2 years, he had started a new business that was more successful than his previous one. Within 5 years, he had created a fortune larger than he had ever imagined possible. What changed? His circumstances didn't change first, his thoughts changed first. This brings us to a crucial point about this principle. It works whether you believe in it or not. Just like gravity works whether you believe in it or not. Your thoughts are creating your future right now, whether you're aware of it or not. If you're not experiencing the success you desire, examine your thoughts. What do you think about most of the time? What do you expect to happen in your life? What do you believe is possible for you? Your answers to these questions will reveal why you're getting the results you're getting. But here's the empowering part. You can change your thoughts at any moment. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need any special resources. You don't need to wait for circumstances to change. You can begin right now, in this moment, to think new thoughts, to hold new images in your mind, to set new goals for yourself. The 6-word secret to success: we become what we think about, is waiting to work for you. But like any natural law, it requires understanding and application. It requires consistency. It requires patience. Most of all, it requires faith, not religious faith, but faith in the law itself, faith that your thoughts really do create your reality. Start today. Choose your thoughts as carefully as you would choose the seeds for a garden. Plant thoughts of success, of achievement, of contribution. Water them with expectation. Nurture them with action. Guard them against the weeds of doubt and negativity. And watch as they grow into the reality you desire. Remember, success is not an accident. It's the natural result of right thinking followed by right action. Your thoughts are the seeds of your future. Plant them wisely, tend them carefully, and harvest the success you deserve. How this principle manifests in the practical, day-to-day aspects of your lives. Consider for a moment your morning routine. From the moment you open your eyes, your thoughts begin to shape your day. Most people wake up thinking about what they have to do, the pressures they face, the problems they need to solve. But successful people wake up thinking about what they get to do, the opportunities ahead, the solutions they'll create. This subtle shift in thinking creates a completely different day. It's like two people walking down the same street. One sees only the litter and cracks in the sidewalk, while the other notices the possibilities and potential in every storefront and passing stranger. Same street, different thoughts, completely different experiences. Let me share with you a powerful technique I've taught to executives and entrepreneurs around the world. I call it the hour of power. The first hour of your day is sacred. It's when your mind is most receptive to programming. During this hour, feed your mind thoughts of growth, success, and achievement. Read something inspirational. Write down your goals. Visualize your desired outcomes. This one practice alone can revolutionize your results. I remember a businessman in Detroit who implemented this practice. He was struggling with his company, facing declining sales and mounting pressures. Instead of waking up and immediately checking his phone for problems, he dedicated his first hour to thinking about solutions, opportunities, and growth. Within 6 months, his company had turned around. His thoughts had literally reshaped his reality. This brings us to another crucial aspect of our 6-word secret, the role of persistence in thought. Many people understand the principle intellectually but fail to apply it consistently. They think positive thoughts for a day or two, then revert to their old patterns when challenges arise. But remember, thoughts are like diet and exercise. You don't get fit by eating one healthy meal or going to the gym once. It's the consistent, persistent application that creates results. Consider the Wright brothers. For years, the prevailing thought was that human flight was impossible. But Orville and Wilbur Wright held different thoughts. They thought constantly about the possibility of flight. They studied birds. They made calculations. They conducted experiments. They faced ridicule and setbacks. But they persisted in their thoughts of success until those thoughts became reality. The same principle applies to your financial success. Your income will rarely exceed your self-concept. If you think you're worth $50,000 a year, you'll find ways to stay at that level. If you think you're worth $500,000 a year, you'll find ways to achieve that. But here's the key: you must think it first, consistently and persistently, before you can achieve it. Let me share a powerful exercise that demonstrates this principle. Take out your wallet or purse right now. Look at the amount of money you typically carry. Are you comfortable with that amount? Do you feel anxious carrying more? Your comfort level with money, even in this simple example, reflects your thoughts about money. To increase your income, you must first increase your comfort level with larger sums. I knew a woman who always kept exactly $43 in her wallet, no more, no less. When I asked her why, she revealed that her father had once told her that was all a responsible person needed to carry. She had unconsciously accepted this thought and built her financial life around it. Once she recognized this limiting thought pattern, she consciously began thinking differently about money. Today, she's a successful investor who manages millions of dollars. Your thoughts about money, success, relationships, and every other aspect of your life create your comfort zone. And here's a fundamental truth: life will not give you more than you think you deserve. This isn't about worthiness in a moral sense. It's about your thoughts creating your expectations and your expectations creating your results. Consider technology pioneers like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. They thought on a massive scale. They didn't just think about making good products or building successful companies. They thought about changing the world. Their results matched the scale of their thoughts. While most people think about getting through the day, truly successful people think about transforming the future. This brings us to another vital aspect of our principle, the relationship between thoughts and environment. Your physical environment is a reflection of your thoughts, and it also influences your thoughts. Look around your workspace. What does it tell you about your thoughts regarding success? Is it organized and professional, reflecting thoughts of success and achievement? Or is it cluttered and chaotic, reflecting scattered thinking? I once visited the office of a struggling insurance salesman. His desk was piled with unopened mail, old newspapers, and coffee cups. His walls were bare. When I asked him about his goals, he couldn't give me a clear answer. We spent an afternoon reorganizing his office, creating a vision board for his walls, and most importantly, reorganizing his thoughts. Within 3 months, his sales had doubled. His outer world had begun to match his new, more organized and success-oriented thoughts. The power of this principle extends to your health and physical well-being as well. Your body responds to your thoughts in remarkable ways. When you think stressful thoughts, your body produces stress hormones. When you think peaceful thoughts, your body produces healing hormones. This isn't mystical, it's measurable scientific fact. I worked with an athlete who was recovering from a serious injury. His doctors gave him a year to recover, but he refused to accept that thought. Instead, he filled his mind with thoughts of rapid healing and return to peak performance. He visualized his body healing, his strength returning. He recovered in 5 months, shocking his medical team. His thoughts literally accelerated his healing. This brings us to one of the most powerful applications of our principle, its effect on your relationships. The thoughts you hold about yourself determine the types of relationships you attract and maintain. If you think you deserve respect, you'll attract respectful relationships. If you think you deserve less, that's exactly what you'll get. I remember counseling a young executive who couldn't understand why she kept getting passed over for promotion. In our discussions, it became clear that she thought of herself as just lucky to have a job. This thought pattern affected everything: her posture in meetings, her tone of voice, the projects she volunteered for. When she began thinking of herself as a valuable contributor worthy of advancement, everything changed. Within a year, she had received 2 promotions. Your thoughts also affect how you handle challenges and setbacks. Successful people don't just think positive thoughts when things are going well. They maintain constructive thought patterns, especially when facing difficulties. They understand that setbacks are not permanent unless you think they are. Consider Thomas Edison again. After his laboratory burned down, destroying years of work, he could have thought thoughts of defeat and despair. Instead, he famously said, "Great. All our mistakes have been burned up. Now we can start fresh again." His thoughts transformed a disaster into an opportunity for a fresh start. This brings us to another crucial aspect of our principle, the importance of specific, detailed thoughts. Vague thoughts produce vague results. When you think about your goals, be as specific as possible. You don't just think, "I want to be successful." Think about exactly what success means to you. What exactly do you want to achieve? By when? How will you measure it? I worked with a real estate developer who was struggling to close deals. When I asked him about his goals, he said, "I want to do big projects." That was too vague. We worked on specific thoughts. "I will develop a 200-unit luxury apartment complex in the downtown area, breaking ground within 18 months, with a total project value of $50 million. With these specific thoughts guiding him, he had a clear target to work toward. He achieved that goal within 16 months. Your thoughts also create your personal brand, how others perceive and respond to you. When you consistently think thoughts of confidence and capability, you naturally project those qualities. People respond to that projection, creating opportunities that align with your thoughts. I knew a consultant who was brilliant at solving problems but struggled to attract high-level clients. Her thoughts were focused on her technical skills, but she needed to think about how she presented herself to potential clients. When she began thinking of herself as a high-level advisor rather than just a technical expert, her entire presentation changed. Her fees tripled within a year. This principle of we become what we think about extends to leadership as well. The thoughts you hold about your team members largely determine their performance. If you think of them as capable and motivated, you'll lead them differently than if you think of them as requiring constant supervision. I worked with a factory manager who was frustrated with his team's performance. His thoughts about his workers were largely negative. He thought they were lazy and untrustworthy. We worked on changing these thoughts. As he began thinking of his team as capable professionals who wanted to do good work, he led them differently. Productivity increased by 40% within 6 months. Your thoughts also determine your learning capacity. If you think you're too old to learn new skills, or that certain subjects are too difficult for you, these thoughts will create self-imposed limitations. But if you think of yourself as a lifelong learner, capable of mastering new skills at any age, you'll find yourself absorbing new knowledge and capabilities constantly. Consider the rapidly changing technology landscape. Those who think they can't keep up with technology create that reality for themselves. Those who think of technological changes as exciting opportunities for growth tend to stay ahead of the curve. Same changes, different thoughts, completely different results. The principle we're discussing also applies to your creativity and problem-solving abilities. When you think about problems, focus on solutions rather than difficulties. Train your mind to ask better questions. Instead of why is this happening to me, ask what opportunity is this presenting. I remember working with an entrepreneur whose business was disrupted by new technology. Instead of thinking thoughts of defeat, he asked himself, how can I use this new technology to serve my customers better? Those thoughts led to a complete business transformation that ultimately doubled his revenue. Your thoughts about time also create your reality. People who think they never have enough time usually don't. People who think of time as abundant and manageable usually find ways to accomplish what's important to them. It's not that they have more time, they just think about it differently. I worked with a busy executive who constantly thought thoughts of time scarcity. I don't have time was her automatic response to every new opportunity. We worked on changing these thoughts to I have exactly the right amount of time for what's truly important. This shift in thinking led her to better delegation, improved prioritization, and ultimately greater productivity. Remember, every thought you hold is either moving you toward your goals or away from them. There is no neutral thinking. Every thought is a seed that will bear fruit of its own kind. This is why it's so crucial to be vigilant about what you allow to occupy your mind. The good news is that you can change your thought patterns at any time. Just as you can change the channel on a television, you can change the channel of your thoughts. It requires awareness and practice, but it's a skill that anyone can develop. Start today. Begin monitoring your thoughts. When you catch yourself thinking limiting or negative thoughts, consciously replace them with thoughts of growth and possibility. Do this consistently and you'll begin to see changes in your life that might seem miraculous to others but are simply the natural result of applying this universal principle. Consider the ripple effect of your thoughts. Just as a stone thrown into a pond creates waves that reach far beyond the point of impact, your thoughts create effects that extend far beyond your immediate circumstances. Let's examine what I call the thought multiplication effect. When you hold a thought consistently, it doesn't just affect your actions, it influences everyone you interact with. Those people in turn affect others, creating a cascade of influence that can span generations. Consider the case of a teacher I worked with in Chicago. She taught in a challenging inner-city school where most students were expected to fail. But she held different thoughts. She thought of each student as having unlimited potential. This wasn't mere positive thinking, it was a deep, unshakable conviction that transformed her teaching methods, her interactions with students, and ultimately, their performance. One of her students, inspired by her belief in him, went on to become a successful entrepreneur. He now mentors other young people, passing on the same thoughts of unlimited potential that his teacher held for him. Her thoughts didn't just change one life, they created a continuing cascade of positive change that affects hundreds of lives today. This brings us to an important distinction, the difference between passive and active thoughts. Passive thoughts are like leaves floating on a stream, they just happen to you. Active thoughts are like a purposeful current, they move you in a specific direction. Most people live with passive thoughts, reacting to circumstances. Successful people cultivate active thoughts, creating their circumstances. I worked with a real estate investor who lost everything in the 2008 financial crisis. While others were thinking thoughts of scarcity and fear, he actively thought about opportunities in the distressed market. He studied patterns from previous economic downturns, analyzed emerging trends, and positioned himself for the recovery. By 2012, he had built a larger portfolio than he had before the crash. Your thoughts also create what I call your success thermostat. Just as a thermostat regulates temperature, your thoughts regulate the level of success you'll allow yourself to achieve. If your thought thermostat is set at $50,000 a year, you'll find ways to stay at that level, even if you temporarily earn more. I remember working with a salesman who consistently earned around $80,000 annually. When he had an exceptional month and earned $15,000, he would unconsciously sabotage the next month, bringing his average back to his thought level. Once he recognized this pattern and reset his thought thermostat to $250,000 annually, his behavior changed automatically. He began seeking bigger clients, making more calls, and improving his skills until his results matched his new thought level. This principle extends to every area of life. Your relationships will never exceed the quality of your thoughts about yourself and others. Your health will reflect your thoughts about your body and wellness. Your spiritual growth will match your thoughts about your purpose and potential. Let's examine what I call the thought-environment connection. Your physical environment is both a reflection of your thoughts and a powerful influence on them. This creates either an upward or downward spiral, depending on how you manage it. I visited the office of a struggling consultant. His workspace was cluttered with unopened mail, old coffee cups, and random papers. His computer desktop was equally chaotic, with hundreds of unorganized files. This environment wasn't just a result of scattered thinking, it was reinforcing and perpetuating those thought patterns. We spent a day transforming his environment. We organized his physical space, created systems for managing information, and designed his office to reflect success and professionalism. Within weeks, his thoughts became more organized and focused. His client presentations improved. His closing rate doubled. The improved environment fostered better thoughts, which created better results, which inspired even better thoughts. This brings us to what I call the thought-time paradox. Most people think they don't have enough time to accomplish their goals. But this thought itself creates time pressure and reduces effectiveness. Those who think they have exactly the right amount of time tend to accomplish far more. I worked with a CEO who constantly thought thoughts of time scarcity. "I'm so busy" was her mantra. We worked on changing this to "I have abundant time for what matters most." This shift in thinking led her to delegate more effectively, focus on higher value activities, and actually accomplish more while working less. Your thoughts about money create what I call your wealth window. This is the range of financial possibilities you can actually see. Most people's wealth windows are quite narrow. They can only see opportunities within a limited range above their current income. I remember working with an employee who dreamed of starting his own business. When I asked him about his financial goals, he said he wanted to double his current salary of $60,000. Why only double? Because that was the limit of his wealth window. We worked on expanding his thoughts about what was possible. Today, his business generates millions in revenue. This brings us to the concept of thought momentum. Just as a physical object in motion tends to stay in motion, thoughts that are consistently held tend to gain strength and momentum over time. This can work for you or against you depending on the nature of your thoughts. Consider a woman I worked with who had a pattern of thinking, "I always make bad decisions." Each time something went wrong, it reinforced this thought. We worked on changing this to, "I learn and grow from every decision." As this new thought gained momentum, her decision-making actually improved, creating a positive spiral of better thoughts leading to better decisions leading to even better thoughts. Your thoughts also create what I call your success vocabulary. The words you habitually use, both in speech and in internal dialogue, shape your reality. People who consistently think and speak in terms of problems, difficulties, and limitations create those very conditions. Those who think and speak in terms of opportunities, solutions, and possibilities create those conditions instead. I worked with a team leader who constantly used phrases like "we can't," "it's impossible," and "that won't work." His team's performance reflected these limiting thoughts. We worked on consciously changing his vocabulary to include phrases like "let's explore how we can," "what if we tried," and "here's a possible solution." The change in his team's performance was remarkable. This brings us to what I call the thought-action bridge. Many people believe that taking action is the key to success. But action without aligned thoughts often leads to frustrated effort. When your thoughts and actions are aligned, however, you create a powerful force for achievement. Consider an athlete I worked with who was struggling with performance anxiety. His actions, training, practice, preparation were all excellent. But his thoughts during competition were undermining his performance. We worked on aligning his thoughts with his actions, creating what I call thought-action coherence. His performance improved dramatically. Your thoughts also create what I call your innovation aperture, the degree to which you can see creative solutions and opportunities. Most people think within conventional boundaries, which limits their innovation aperture. But when you consciously expand your thoughts beyond conventional limits, you begin to see possibilities others miss. I worked with an entrepreneur who was struggling to compete in a crowded market. Instead of thinking about how to do things better, we worked on thinking about how to do things differently. This expanded thinking led to a completely new business model that transformed his industry. This brings us to the concept of thought resilience. Life will inevitably present challenges and setbacks. The quality of your thoughts during these times largely determines whether these challenges break you or make you stronger. I remember working with a business owner whose main supplier suddenly went bankrupt, threatening to destroy his business. Instead of thinking catastrophic thoughts, he thought, "This is an opportunity to rebuild our supply chain better than before." This resilient thinking led him to discover new suppliers who provided better quality at lower prices. Your thoughts also create what I call your leadership lens, the way you view and interact with others. Leaders who think of their team members as problems to be managed create one type of organization. Those who think of team members as potential to be developed create something entirely different. I worked with a factory manager who thought his workers were lazy and needed constant supervision. We worked on changing these thoughts to see his team as capable professionals who wanted to do good work. As his thoughts changed, his management style changed, and productivity increased dramatically. This brings us to what I call the thought-energy connection. Your thoughts directly affect your energy levels. People who think heavy, burdensome thoughts often feel physically exhausted. Those who think light, purposeful thoughts tend to have more energy, even when doing the same amount of work. Consider an executive I worked with who constantly thought about how hard and stressful her job was. These thoughts literally drained her energy. When she shifted to thinking about how her work made a difference in people's lives, her energy levels increased noticeably. Your thoughts also create what I call your growth gradient, the rate at which you learn and develop new capabilities. People who think they're too old to learn or that certain skills are beyond them create a shallow growth gradient. Those who think of themselves as continuous learners create a steeper, more productive growth gradient. I worked with a professional in his 50s who thought he was too old to learn new technology. This thought was limiting his career opportunities. We worked on changing this to my experience makes me better at learning new things. Within a year, he had become one of his organization's experts in digital transformation. This brings us to the concept of thought filters, the unconscious criteria through which you process information and opportunities. Most people's thought filters are set to screen out possibilities that don't match their current reality. Successful people consciously adjust their thought filters to let in bigger opportunities. I remember working with a salesperson who automatically filtered out high-value prospects, thinking they wouldn't be interested in his product. We worked on changing his thought filters to include these prospects. His average sale value tripled within 6 months. Your thoughts also create what I call your relationship resonance, the quality and depth of connections you create with others. People who think superficial thoughts about relationships tend to create superficial connections. Those who think deeply about understanding and serving others create profound and lasting relationships. I worked with a consultant who was struggling to retain clients. His thoughts were focused on what he could get from each relationship. We worked on changing his thoughts to focus on how he could add value to each client's business. His client retention rate went from 40% to over 90%. This brings us to what I call thought momentum. Just as a physical object in motion tends to stay in motion, thoughts that are consistently held tend to gain strength and momentum over time. This can work for you or against you, depending on the nature of your thoughts. Consider an entrepreneur I worked with who had a pattern of thinking, every time I succeed, something goes wrong. Each setback reinforced this thought. We worked on changing this to, each challenge makes my success more secure. As this new thought gained momentum, his business became more stable and profitable. Your thoughts also create what I call your value vibration, the level at which you approach your work and life. People who think mainly about getting by or doing the minimum create one level of value. Those who think about excellence and exceptional contribution create something entirely different. I worked with a teacher who was feeling burned out. Her thoughts were focused on getting through each day. We worked on shifting her thoughts to how she could make each lesson exceptionally valuable for her students. Her enthusiasm returned and her students' performance improved dramatically. This brings us to the concept of thought architecture, the structured way in which successful people build their thinking patterns. Rather than letting thoughts occur randomly, they consciously design their thinking to support their goals. Consider a business owner I worked with who was overwhelmed by daily operations. We created a thought architecture that organized his thinking into strategic, tactical, and operational levels. This structured thinking led to better delegation, improved systems, and stronger results. Your thoughts also create what I call your innovation index, your capacity to see and create new possibilities. Most people think within established patterns, which limits their innovation index. But when you consciously think beyond conventional boundaries, you begin to see opportunities others miss. I worked with a retailer who was struggling to compete with online sellers. Instead of thinking about how to match online prices, we worked on thinking about how to create experiences that online sellers couldn't match. This expanded thinking led to a new business model that actually benefited from online competition. This brings us to what I call thought ecology, the understanding that thoughts exist in an interconnected system. A change in one area of thinking inevitably affects other areas. This can create either virtuous or vicious cycles, depending on how you manage it. Consider an executive I worked with who was struggling with work-life balance. His thoughts about work success were creating stress that affected his family relationships, which in turn affected his work performance. We worked on creating a healthier thought ecology that supported both professional and personal success. Let me conclude by bringing all these principles together into what I call the thought integration framework. This is where the real power lies, not in applying these concepts individually, but in understanding how they work together to create extraordinary results. Think of it like an orchestra. Each instrument is powerful on its own, but when they play together in harmony, they create something far greater than the sum of their parts. Similarly, when you integrate your success thermostat with your innovation aperture, align your thought action bridge with your leadership lens, and harmonize your value vibration with your growth gradient, you create a symphony of success. The key to making this work is consistency. You don't have to be perfect, you just need to be persistent. Start with one area that matters most to you right now. Apply these principles consistently for 30 days. Watch what happens. Then add another area. Build momentum gradually but inexorably. Remember this fundamental truth: your thoughts are not just passive observers of your life. They are active creators of your reality. Every thought you hold is like a seed planted in the garden of your life. Choose those seeds carefully, nurture them consistently, and watch as they grow into the reality you desire. The choice is yours. You can let your thoughts happen to you, or you can consciously choose thoughts that create the life you want. The principles I've shared today aren't just theories, they're tools. Use them. Test them. Prove them to yourself. Your future is being created right now, one thought at a time. Make those thoughts count. Thank you.